Hey, folks, Tim Miller here. And I know if you're like me, we kind of live in a country where every week it seems like something else is happening. And, for a while I thought, this can't, it's got to be a string of, negative, bad things. But, the more I look at it, the more I think it's not a string, it's intentional. I think when you look at organizations like the IRS, the FBI, the Secret Service, which we'll talk about here in a minute, the military, you look at the bench, judicial actions that are being taken, you look at Border Patrol, you look at all these things, and you have to ask yourself, is America in trouble? And I wanted to share with you a conversation I had with Jesse Waters about some of the things going on within the Secret Service. And then I'd love to get your comments back as to what your thoughts are to what's going on in our country. So let's take a look at this.
The Secret Service has been plagued by scandals since Biden's election. They slammed the brakes on the White House Koch investigation, then destroyed the evidence. Naomi Biden's Secret Service detail got carjacked right in front of her house. And, of course, there's Commander. But the scariest incident happened just a few weeks ago when a Secret Service agent assigned to Kamala Harris wigged out, attacked her colleagues, and pelted them with maxi pads. The freakout was so concerning, she had to be hospitalized. That agent had a checkered past. Before she joined the service, she was a cop with a controversial fatality and a dismissed lawsuit on her jacket. A lot of people were asking how someone like that could get so close to the second most powerful person in the country. Constitutionally, that's Kamala. Today, an anonymous group of Secret Service agents signed a petition and sent it to Congress, demanding an investigation into Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle, specifically her DEI hiring project. Cheadle promised to transform the Secret Service by hiring more women. Only problem? They say all these female hires aren't really being vetted. Multiple sources say the agent in Kamala's detail had a history of poor judgment and wasn't, quote, held to the same rigorous standards expected of all Secret Service agent candidates during her recruitment, training, and eventual assignment. The sources also told the petitioners she failed the drill known as Hogan's Alley. It's one of those courses where you run through simulated ambushes and have to shoot bad guys, not civilians. Instead, she shot the civilians and let the bad guys live. You're not supposed to fail that test and be promoted to protect the vice president's life. The petition claims Director Cheadle, who at that time was the special agent overseeing her exam, graduated her anyway. If true, that's a huge problem. The petition says the agency is vulnerable to, quote, potential insider threats. These agents are demanding an immediate congressional investigation and want the director dismissed. The Secret Service says, quote, it's evident that this anonymous petitioner does not embody the U.S. Secret Service's values of service over self. Our strength comes from our diversity in the knowledge, skills, experience, and perspective each employee brings. Former Secret Service agent Tim Miller joins us now. Tim, this seems reckless. What's going on?
Yeah, so Jesse, the defund the police boat is taking on water. I think if you look, first it was the IRS, then it's the FBI, and now you have internal Secret Service agents that are raising the alarm. And if you think about it, it's pretty simple. They're concerned that our mission as a Secret Service agent is compromised. And that should cause everybody to go, well, wait a minute. This is the premier protection agency in the world. I had been a Marine, I'd been a police officer, and when I went through that training, it was challenging. And quite frankly, if the internal agents are rising up and saying we have a problem, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah. When you become a lawyer, you have to pass the bar. When you become a surgeon, you have to pass medical exams. When you become a Secret Service agent, if you start killing civilians during the Hogan's Alley drill, you shouldn't be a Secret Service agent. How hard is that to understand?
Yeah, and I think, Jesse, I'm not going to talk about my colleague. Obviously, she's got some issues that they're working through, and my prayers go with her. But it does raise the question of, hey, who do we want around the most powerful people in the world? Who should be there? Should it be a certain person, or should it be the most qualified, the most fit, the person that's demonstrated time and time again they can make decisions that need to be made in split seconds? So you bring a great point. And let me just say this, having gone through the Secret Service training, it's the best in the world. I still know people there. They're great trainers, and it's great training. My concern is when internal agents begin raising concerns, that causes me to go, uh-oh, because when they do it at great peril to themselves and their careers.
Yeah, and they've been leaking to CNN that they're tired of getting bitten by dogs.
We've had this conversation, haven't we?
We have.
He's gone. He's out.
He's out. He's out.
Yeah.
And no one had to put him down. They just got rid of him. All right, Tim, good luck over there. We'll keep America posted about the fate of Cheadle. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Folks, I gotta tell you, you just have to look at this through the lens of what's happening across our country right now. What is going on that piece by piece, person by person, things that organizations that used to stand tall for truth, justice, the American way, as we remember from an old Superman cartoon. But that really did embody what these agents were trying to stand for: truth, justice, and the American way. And I know that sounds oversimple, but it's not. That's what we stood for. Folks, I can't stress enough to you as you watch this clip with Jesse. We all need to remember that this is just one of many things that's going on, not by accident, intentional steps. And the unfortunate part about this, and let's just focus on the Secret Service. I have some level of authenticity and experience with the Secret Service. I was a Marine. I can speak to what's going on in the military, and I was a police officer, so I can speak to what's going on in the police world. I'll tell you, in all three of those, we have shifted focus. We have said it's no longer about truth, justice, the American way. Let me keep it even more simple. If we're not foundationally based, all of our elected officials, on integrity, number one, integrity, it means we stand solid for certain principles. One of those principles is we love our country and we'll defend it at all costs. But then the second one is competency. So we have integrity, we have competency. We need to be good at what we do. Folks, as a Secret Service agent, I worked out all the time. I trained all the time. I shot all the time. I watched all the time. Why? You never know. I wanted to be the guy that could stop the attack on the president. Why? Because I was proactive, prepared, and trained. Maybe you've heard that before. So you've got integrity and competency, but then you've got the third piece, and this is where things are going south. We all had a shared ideology, and the ideology was we believe in the United States, and we believe that together we're stronger. Folks, I got to tell you now listen carefully. If you listen to the messages that are being broadcast out all the time, those messages are generally divisive. They're what someone's not doing. They're why someone is a victim. They're, well, you better include this person, or you better not say anything, or we'll cancel that person. Think about it, folks. Everything is divisive. Everything is divisive. Now, Scripture tells us a house divided against itself cannot stand. So I ask you, is America in trouble? I think we all kind of know. We all feel it. We all sense it. We're in trouble. We're in big trouble. And let me tell you, one of the greatest fears I have is when voices that don't agree with certain elements of, I'm going to call them the mob, those that are very aggressive, angry, and even violent about getting their way. If good people's voices can't be heard, then we're in trouble. And so let me ask you, is America in trouble? Well, how would we know if we were in trouble? Well, first and foremost, if you look at Rome, one of the key things that caused Rome to fall as the greatest nation on the planet, the one who had ruled over virtually everybody else for centuries, was the destruction and degradation of the family. Now, I want you to stop and think about this for a minute. Is the American family better off today than it was 30 years ago? Think about that. What's the ratio of fatherless homes today compared to where it was in the 1950s and the 1960s? Let's talk about crime. Now, the FBI just came out with a report said, "Oh, crime's going down." And folks, all I'm going to say is if you trust that based on what you see on the news every night, then maybe you should do some more critical thinking, because crime is not going down. And with the influx of violent people, more innocent Americans are being slaughtered. So think about the family, think about the crime. Let's look at our economy. Do you know post World War II, we were by far the richest nation on the earth? We had an astonishing percentage of the world's gold. We had literally produced a war machine that no one could stand against. And we had a privilege and an honor to take all of that and to use it for good. Unfortunately, many in our leadership over the years began to do what is being done now, and that's to praise politics over our country, which is why I'm a big advocate for term limits. Folks, we're not better off politically. We're not better off with our families. We're not better off with our economy. We're not, if you go down the list, but the real concerning thing to me is when you begin to drill down into any of these areas, you see things that are shocking. You see that the FBI, which, remember, folks, I'm on the law enforcement team. I was one of them. I played at the highest levels. But the thought that an agent could go repeatedly to a FISA court judge, those were exclusive judges authorized only to issue warrants absent your typical Fourth Amendment protocols because they were concerned about terrorism. They felt like this legislation was needed, but it was never to be used against American citizens. Well, guess what? It was. It was hundreds of thousands of times. Now, I don't know if you understand. If you don't understand the Constitution, now would be a good time to read it. But the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was designed to protect you and I against illegal search or seizure, meaning that our founding fathers, and that amendment was designed to say the government can't run roughshod over you. They have to cross certain legal restriction lines before they can come and barge into your house or arrest you. They have to have, and we could go through all this, but it's got to start with reasonable suspicion. An officer has to have a reasonable suspicion that you're doing something criminal. Now, it can be as simple as, hey, the tags don't match the car, or you ran a stop sign, but then when you get to probable cause, it's a reasonable belief that a person has committed a crime and the person that you're dealing with did that crime. You don't get just to go up and shake people down. And that never, honestly, that was not part of the world I grew up in. Police officers were, and they're not perfect, obviously. There have been a lot of dirty cops through the years, but they generally, I know I did, and I know the people I work with at Fairfax County Police, they were all about protecting citizens, not abusing them. And so here we go. Okay, we're seeing breakdowns in, think of the IRS testimony on the Joe Biden laptop investigation, the FBI January 6th stuff, I mean, it's shocking. It really is. And so why am I talking to you about this? Why am I saying, hey, folks, we really need to pay attention? It's because when you begin to slowly degrade the integrity, the competency, really the ideology of those that have authority, they have a lot of authority. Folks, when I was a police officer or an agent, I knew I had a ton of authority. I could take people's freedoms. I could take their stuff. I want you to know, though, that I always took that with humility and sobriety, because I realized that if I wasn't doing it the right way with the laws in mind, that what I was doing was becoming, on the other side, a bad guy. I'm changing jerseys. If we begin to abuse people's rights, if we begin to not consider the law, and if we're not loyal ideologically to the US, we're in trouble. And I know you know this, but right now, there is a decided, distinctive move to get people to shut up that don't agree with some of the things that are being, I'm going to say, put down our throats, whether we like it or not, at risk of being canceled. And so I know this channel, you know, I get it. I'm not sure how much of my stuff gets out, because I know I talk about things that, you know, platforms don't agree with. And I thank God that we still have freedom to do this. And I believe every American should be doing this. I don't believe it should be a YouTube personality or a channel. I believe everybody should be doing this. We should be rational. We should be very, very, careful to not let our words go crazy. That's another thing. People become keyboard warriors and they trash and they talk. And let's just be people of integrity that stand for what is right. And even that statement will elicit anger and threats and all kinds of things. And so I just wanted to tee this up and ask you, is America in trouble? And what can we do about it? And you've heard me say this recently, and I'm going to continue to say it. If you're not willing to get up and do something about it, then you're part of the problem. I remember very, very clearly, I've shared this before. My dad was a World War II veteran, and he talked about how when he spoke to the people in Japan and in Italy after the war, while everything was still absolutely destroyed, to a person, they said, wow, we can't believe this happened. They all understood that they went with the flow when the flow was evil. And I still believe, folks, that there's hope for our country. I believe we have to start standing. So I'm going to ask you a question. Have you written or met with your representatives, your elected representatives? Well, who would that be? Well, starting with the mayor, school board. We all have to become active in sharing our points of view, knowing that in some places you won't win, but that doesn't give you an excuse not to do something about it. And who knows? Who knows if you click with the right people? You know, the conversations I'm having are very enlightening nowadays, because I talk to folks that, have voted Democratic for decades, couldn't conceive of voting for anybody other than a Democrat. But now they're beginning to see, folks, it's not about party, it's about policies. What does your elected official stand for? And does that, coincide with your beliefs, your closely held beliefs? For many of us, it's what does the Bible say about things? And let me say this about this: we always get pigeonholed into the, oh, I want to talk about abortion, or I want to talk about this, or I want to talk about that. But right now, the right to abortion rests with the states. It is what it is. If you live in a state that it's outlawed, then you live in a state that it's outlawed. If you live in a state where it's legal right up until when, then you live in that state. We all know definitively what people of faith believe, but now we're getting into every other issue. We're getting into what's a marriage. We're getting into, should I be able to put drugs into my body that I know will transform me into a zombie with open sores, and it's merciful to allow me to do that under the law. That's where, folks, you go from, some kind of normalcy into crazy ideology. And that's where we are. And so I wanted to tee this up and just for conversation. I know I will get a lot of comments. Actually, I want a lot of comments. I want people to really think about what I've said, because I do believe as we begin to process these issues, that rather than, flipping on the YouTube or watching cable and flipping channels, that we will actually have, important discussions and dialogue on what matters. I know many on this channel listen from Germany and across the world, and you're facing your own challenges. So I think it's important to have that dialogue. Sometimes, especially in the Christian community, we can hide back in our churches and you hear things that are absolutely true, spoken from the word, but then we leave the doors and we don't really want to get into it with anybody. It's not a question of getting into it. It's about civil dialogue. I was reminded that much of the scripture written by the Apostle Paul, he was going into totally crazy, Corinth being one of them, places, and where just stuff was crazy. And yet you never hear him condemning and rebuking. And what you hear him saying is, let me tell you a better way. And that goes back to, he chose to be a light in a dark place. Well, guess what, folks? The world is a dark place. And so I hope these videos, oftentimes I try to train the practical skills that you and your family will need, by the way, not if, will. It's coming. No question about it, it's coming. But I also want to talk about some bigger things today, or wanted to, and that's what's really going on in our country. Because I think if we can recognize it, then we can begin to address it. But I found that when people don't pay attention to what really is going on, they don't know what to do. And here we go, it's a year later and it's way worse. And that's not good. And you're starting to see folks on the extreme left, not even the extreme left, I would say on the left part of left, and folks on the extreme right are beginning to say, these two can't work together, and therefore conflict is coming. And I certainly agree that we should prepare, no question. But the question is, how do we prepare? And let me just encourage you as I step out, the most important thing you can do in these times is to pray. Because I believe, and I believe most of you do believe, if you don't, I honor you. I would encourage you, to check out, the claims of Jesus, because it's pretty awesome. I mean, his words are so amazingly fit for these times. And so I would encourage you to check that out. But, I do want to make sure in the process for me that I'm not, hear no evil, see no evil. I've had some comments recently, I don't pay attention to this stuff. Well, you can do that. But that means, in essence, you're complacent to the problem. I've often thought what it must have been like for a German citizen in, let's say, Berlin, to go through the rise of Hitler, to watch what happened, conquering the world. Everybody's all hyped up, but then reality came back around. And almost every German city was damaged or destroyed. And I wonder, walking through the streets of Berlin in 1945, let's say, June, what the average German citizen was thinking. Instead of going with the crowd, instead of, just flowing down the river, getting all caught up into nationalism and all that stuff, what if they looked at it and said, no, I'm not going to hate the Jews just because they're Jewish. That's insanity. But that's what many did. And when I look at what's going on in our country today, folks, the most astoundingly scary thing that I am witnessing is the open dialogue to murder the Jewish race here on college campuses. You want to take a look at the future? Take a look at what's going on college campuses. And by the way, the Soviets knew that in the 1950s, and they were very intentional on trying to put Marxist instructors, infuse them into U.S. colleges. So I hope this at least stimulates thought today. I really, I know the last couple of my videos have been problematic and yet they're very sober, but folks, I do believe that we can make a difference. I really do believe that. I believe that if you're prepared, if you're wise, if bad thing happen, you can not only care for your family, but you can help protect those around you. Folks, life is too short to sit on the sidelines and, pull the covers over your head. It's time for every single person to get engaged. And can I ask you to do me a favor? I know I'm losing subscribers. I know my message isn't getting out. I suspect that, a lot of what I say, including today, is not popular. So can I ask you to like, share, subscribe, help me get the word out? And I really do. I would ask you, especially with your kids, your grandkids, or, whoever that would be open to an honest conversation. And that's frustrating because I find that there are less and less people that are he had Fox News, therefore he's one of those radical, interestingly enough, they call folks fascists, on the right side. But last time I checked, the fascists were the ones screaming death to the Jews. Now, which side does that? And again, that's the most horrifying thing that I can think of. As I told you earlier, I believe God's word. I believe that the choices we make will affect whether God deals with us favorably or not. And if we turn and stand against Israel, I believe prophetically we will pay a very high price. And I hope and pray that that's not in our lifetime. I hope we can kind of maybe, with prayer and revival, see the error of our ways and come back home. So like, share, subscribe. I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of comments on this, but I think I'd rather be a truth teller than to sit back, watch it happen, and not do anything. So God bless you. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.